There's this hidden engine that drives literally every single thing we do, but most of the time, it's completely invisible. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on that engine. We're talking about our intent.
Okay, so let me ask you something. What really makes a good deed good? Seriously, think about it. Imagine two people do the exact same thing. Let's say they each donate $100 to charity. Are their actions really equal? I mean, what if one person did it just to get a tax break, while the other, they did it simply because they wanted to help someone out? That question right there gets to the very heart of what we're talking about. To find an answer, we're going to turn to this really profound teaching, something that's guided millions of people for, over 1,400 years. And it gives us this incredible framework for understanding what our actions are truly worth. All right, so we're diving into a very specific saying, or hadith, of the Prophet Muhammad. And listen, this isn't just any hadith. This one is a huge deal. It's so foundational, it was literally placed as the #1 entry in one of the most respected and meticulously compiled collections of Islamic traditions ever. And putting it first? That was no accident. It was a very deliberate choice. It's basically sending a message, hey, before you get into anything else about faith or doing good deeds, you have to get this one thing first. You gotta understand intention. It's like the main gate, Everything else has to pass through it. And here it is. This is the core principle. Actions are judged by intentions. Simple, right? But so powerful. It means that what an action looks like on the outside, what everyone sees, that's actually secondary. What really matters is the why behind it. And then the teaching makes this super important connection. Your reward, it's tied directly to that intention. It's a perfect match. Now, a principle like that is great, but it can be a little abstract, right? So to make sure this idea really sticks, the teaching gives us this amazing case study, a real-world example that back then everyone would have gotten in a heartbeat. And that example is the Hijrah, the migration. You have to understand, for the early Muslims, this was a massive deal. I mean, it was a huge act of faith. They were leaving everything behind, their homes, their families, all their money, to go start a new community just for their beliefs. It was the ultimate sacrifice. But, and this is the key part, the teaching shows us that not everyone who made that sacrifice did it for the same reason. And this is where we get to the heart of the story. It sets up this incredible comparison. You've got two people, both on the exact same really difficult journey. But inside, they're driven by totally different things. On the outside, they look like they're on the same path. But where they end up, spiritually speaking, couldn't be more different. So here's the bottom line. On the surface, you can't tell them apart. They're both packing their bags, they're both saying their goodbyes, they're both making that long, hard journey. But what's going on inside? Totally different stories. One person's heart is completely focused on a higher purpose. They're doing this for God. The other person, they're doing it for something in this world, maybe for a business deal, or, and the text is super specific about this, to marry a certain woman who was also making the trip. And this is where the teaching just brilliantly spells out the consequence. It says, look, whoever migrates for God has their migration counted for that. Simple. But the person who migrated for some worldly thing, or to marry that woman, their migration is only for what they intended. So yeah, they might get the money, or they might marry that person, but that's it. That's all they get. Okay, so you might be thinking, that's a cool story from the 7th century, but what does that have to do with me today? Well, everything. Because that story isn't just about history, it's about a timeless, universal principle that applies to all of us, right here, right now. The key idea here has a name. It's Niyyah. That's the Arabic word for intention. And a great way to think about it is like, it's the spiritual DNA of your actions. It's that invisible why that gives all the value to the visible what. It's really the difference between just going through the motions and doing something truly meaningful. So when you look at it that way, migration suddenly becomes this powerful metaphor for any big choice in our own lives, right? Your migration could be picking a career path, or starting a family, or even just how you approach your job every single day. The very same task can feel like a boring chore, or it can feel like a profound act of service. It all comes down to the intention you bring with you. All right, so let's just boil this all down. What are the big takeaways here? First, the real value of anything you do, it all depends on your why. Second, you get exactly what you aimed for. Third, if your goal is just about something in this world, that's all you're going to get. And finally, and this is the big one, when you do something for a higher purpose, you unlock a much higher, much more lasting reward.
Really, it all comes down to this. Intention isn't just a part of a good deed, it's the absolute essence of it. Without that sincere, good intention, even something that looks amazing on the outside can be, well, completely hollow on the inside.
And that brings us right back to where we started. But now, hopefully, we're looking at things a little differently. This teaching really invites us to just pause. As you go about your day, before you do the next thing on your list, whether that's sending an email, making a call, whatever, just ask yourself this one simple question. What's the real intention behind what I'm about to do? Because honestly, the answer might just change everything.